Shabbat Shalom to everybody keeping the Sabbath today according to the only calendar of the Most High, Genesis 1:14. Today is the 15th day of the 8th biblical month. And I just want to go into scripture and give a little, what I've been calling it the Sabbath morning edification. So I just want to go into scripture and give some edification on the 15th day, which is, according to scriptures, always under the full moon. So I just want to go into scripture and just bring out a little bit of edification on that. So I guess first place I'll start is, like I said, the 15th day, which is it's always under the full moon. It's the second Sabbath after the first. So I just want to go into scripture and I'll start there. Luke 6 and verse 1. And it says, "And it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first, that he went through the cornfields," talking about Hamashiach, "and his disciples plucked the ears of corn and did eat, rubbing them in their hands." So Luke 6 and 1 says the second Sabbath after the first. So I've done previous videos and I've said before that all Sabbath dates are always the same. And those dates are the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. And also that these dates also coincide with specific moon phases. So last week, Sabbath, the first phase of the moon was the first quarter moon. That was the 8th day of the biblical month. So if we simply go 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 7 days later, that's today. That's the Sabbath. So this is the second Sabbath after the first. And like I said, the moon phase this evening will be the full moon, according to scripture. So I just want to go into scripture, like I said, and just give some edification on that. And I'll get started in Enoch 77. Bring out some information on the full moon. Enoch 77 verse 6, and it says, "In 14 days the whole of its light is completed," meaning that it's full or perfected, right? In 14 days the whole of its light is completed. By 3 quintuplets light is put into it until 15 days its light is completed. According to the signs of the year, it has 3 quintuplets. So it says in 15 days its light is completed, perfected, and like I said, the perfection of the moon is its fullness. And it says here, and according to the sign of the year. So in sign of the year, I'm going to come back later and make a point about that. But it says, let me get Sirach 43. And I'm going to start at verse 6. It says, "He made the moon also to serve in her season, for a declaration of times." So when it says a declaration of times, the word declaration means an announcement. So every time the moon comes up, she's announcing a specific thing. Like tonight, when the moon comes up, she's going to announce that it's the 15th day of whatever month it is, because the 15th day, which is the full moon, happens every month, right? So this is the 8th month. The 15th day, the 8th month, is going to be a full moon. The 9th month is going to be a full moon. The first month is going to be a full moon. Whatever is the 15th day of the biblical month, according to the calendar of Genesis 1:14, it's always going to be a full moon. Like Luke chapter 6 said, the second Sabbath after the first. So the second Sabbath after the first is always going to be a full moon. It doesn't matter. But it says, Sirach 43 and verse 6, "He made the moon also to serve in her season, for a declaration of time and a sign of the world." So this is the sign of the world. So no matter where we're at in the world, we see the same moon. I'm in Africa. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's about 85 degrees already in Africa. It's getting hot. It's going to be a hot one today. But no matter where we're at in the world, we still see the same sun and the same moon. So the moon the sun that I'm seeing now, because it's nighttime in the United States now. So the same sun that I'm seeing now, in a couple of hours, y'all will start to see the sun there. And when the sun comes your way, the moon will be coming to us. So the same sun that I see is the same moon that you see. So when it says a sign of the world, that is the sign. Like In Jubilees 2, it said the Most High gave us the Sabbath for a sign. And then, like I did on the last video, it said he gave us a sign in accordance. That means an agreement. So the moon agrees with the Sabbath. So every time these phases come, the moon comes up in these specific phases, like it says in Jubilees, that we're lining ourselves up with what's taking place in the Shamayim. So verse 7 says, from the moon is a sign of feast, a light that decreases in its perfection. So like we read in Enoch, it says, in 14 days the whole of his light is completed. By 3 quintuplets the light is poured into it until the 15th day his light is completed. So when it says his light is completed over there in Enoch, it's just a second witness to Sirach 43 verse 7, and it says from the moon is a sign of feast, a light that decreases in its perfection, right? So let me get a precept for that real quick. Sirach 39 and verse 12. It says, yet have I more to say which I have thought upon, for I am filled as the moon at the full. So the perfection, the completeness, the fullness of the moon is the full moon, is the perfection of the moon. So it's saying that right here, right? Let me get one more precept, because it says precept must be upon precept. Sirach 50 verse 6. He was as the morning star in the midst of a cloud, and as the moon at the full. So the full moon is the 15th day of the biblical month, right? So this is what it's saying. So Sirach 43, just to make it's twofold. Sirach 43 and verse 7 is twofold, because it says from the moon is a sign of feast. So real quick, I want to go back over and show that if the moon is a sign of feast, and when it says sign, a sign means an identifying feature. For example, I mean, we don't have this here, but I'm originally from America, so it says from the moon is a sign of feast. So a sign is an identifying feature. So just like if you go to McDonald's, you know it's McDonald's because you're looking at the golden arches. That's the sign. Opposed to Burger King that has the, you know, the burger, whatever their sign is, they have there. So there's no way that you can misconstrue where you're at based on the sign. So it says from the moon is a sign of feast. So when it says it's a sign, it's an identifying feature to let you know something. So when you go into Leviticus 23, which I've said before, it says from the moon is a sign of feast. All of the feasts of the Most High are listed in Leviticus 23. So just real quick, briefly, verse 1 through 3, and we'll see what's the very first feast listed there. Because like I said, today is the second Sabbath after the first, which is the 15th day. So it says, and Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of Yahuwah, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts. So the very first feast listed here. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th is the Sabbath of rest. A holy convocation, ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yahuwah in all your dwellings. So when it says from the moon is a sign of feast, that's exactly what it's talking about, is that the moon determines all feast days to include your weekly Sabbath, which is the very first feast listed there. And that word feast means Strong's Concordance 4150 Moedim, which means appointed time. So all of the feasts listed in Leviticus 23 are appointed times of the Most High. So that's exactly what that's meaning, right? And then you know Psalms 104 verse 19 says he appointed the moon for seasons, the sun knows his going down. So that's just a second precept to just confirm that that's what that's talking about. So I'm going to go back to Enoch 73, because we're talking about, even though the moon is a sign of feast, regardless, because like I said, all feasts are 8, 15, 22, and 29 that coincide with specific moon phases, but today is the 15th, so we're talking specifically about the moon, the full moon in that particular phase. So as far as that's concerned, Enoch 77 and verse 3, and it says, these are the two great luminaries whose orbs are the orbs of heaven, and the dimensions are both equal. So when it's talking about the orbs, it's meaning its size. So in size, the sun and the moon are both the same size. And I know, we've been taught that the sun is 93 million miles away and the moon is 287,000 miles and all that. And we know that that's false doctrine as well, because we don't live on a ball earth. We live on a plane, which is a flat earth. That's a whole nother video. But it says the dimensions of both are equal, meaning that in the fullness of the moon, the completeness of the moon, she is the same size as the sun. This is what this is meaning, right? So I'm gonna go back to verse 7, Enoch 77 verse 7, because I said I wanted to make a point from that, because it says again, by 3 quintuplets light is poured into it until the 15th day its light is completed, according to the signs of the year and its quintuplets. So we already saw in Sirach 43 where it said from the moon is a sign of feast, talking about and we saw that the first feast was the weekly Sabbath. So it says according to the signs of the year. So let's go into scripture and show what this is talking about, because again, like I said, we're talking about the 15th day. So Deuteronomy 16 and 16, and it says, 3 times in a year shall all males appear before Yahuwah thy Allure, in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before Yahuwah empty. So when it says in Enoch the sign of the years, this is what it's talking about, because these are the annual feasts or the pilgrim feast that 3 times in a year we were instructed to go up to Jerusalem. So this is what it's talking about. So being that we're talking about the 15th day, which is the full moon, I'm going to just pull out the 2 feasts that land on the 15th day, which is the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Feast of Tabernacles, which we just kept last month, right? So let me pick that up at Leviticus 23 and verse 6, just to hit that real quick. So we're going to talk about tabernacle real quick, being on the 15th day, and also we're going to talk about Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is coming up shortly, the way these months are going by so fast. Leviticus 23, and I'll start at verse 6. It says, and on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread unto Yahuwah. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. So the Feast of Unleavened Bread is on the 15th day of the first month, being the month of Abib. And like I said, the 15th is the full moon. Check my time on here. The 15th is the full moon. So it says it's a feast for 7 days. So if we simply do in the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Feast of and Tabernacles are kind of similar when you look at it. It's a couple of slight differences, but it's similar as well. So it's a feast that starts on the 15th day. So we just simply go 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's a 7-day feast. It goes from the 17th to the 21st. The 21st being a prep day for the Sabbath, which is actually the 22nd day. Because again, all Sabbaths are 8, 15, 22, and 29. So that's what that's talking about, right? So like I said, we're talking about these 2 feasts specifically because these are the feasts, the signs of the year, and these are the feasts that land on the 15th day, which is the full moon. So I'm going to jump down to verse 39, which is the Feast of Tabernacles. It says, also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, you shall keep a feast unto Yahuwah 7 days. On the first day it shall be a Sabbath, because the 15th is the Sabbath, the second Sabbath after the first, like Luke 6 and 1 said. And it shall be, on the first day it shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day it shall be a Sabbath. So like I said, the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Feast of Tabernacles are similar. They're both a feast that lasts for 8 days, for 7 days, right? So you have the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, 21. Feast of Tabernacles and the Feast of Unleavened Bread is both a feast that lasts for 7 days. So the 7th day is the 21st. That's a prep day for the actual Sabbath. So when it says in context right here that the first day shall be a Sabbath and the 8th day shall be a Sabbath, again, it's talking about the 8th day being the third Sabbath of the month, which is the 22nd day, which is the last quarter moon. So simply, if we saying that this first day is the 15th, if we take that away, then we have the 16th, the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, the 20th. That's the 6 days do our labor and do all our work, and the 7th is a day of rest. That makes the 21st day, the 22nd day, the 8th day, which is the third Sabbath of the month, of every biblical month, right? So I said I want to make a point about the unleavened bread. So I'm gonna go back to let me go back. So let's go back to let's go back to Egypt, and we'll make a point of this. The 15th day, Exodus 12. And like I said, this is an early morning Sabbath edification, just to bring out a little edification on the calendar of the Most High, which is Genesis 1:14. There's absolutely no other way to keep the Feast of the Most High, and this we have to come into the understanding of this, and grab hold of this understanding, because everything that's being said is backed up in Scripture, and the Scripture says it must be precept must be upon precept, and it says everything shall be established in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, and so it's clear that it's outlined in Scripture, right? So we're talking about the full moon, and now we're going back into Egypt to make a point of the full moon, of how when it comes up that night, and we'll go into Scripture in Enoch and show that there's no darkness that night. So Exodus 12 and verse 41 and 42, and this is talking about when our forefathers and our foremothers went out of Egypt, right? So it says, verse 41, and it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the self-same day. So when it says self-same day, it's talking about a specific day. So it says the self-same day, it came to pass, and all the hosts went out from the land of Egypt. It says, it is a night to be much observed unto Yahuwah for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. It says, this is that night of Yahuwah to be observed by all of the children of Israel in their generation. So it says this night and that night. So like I said, Genesis 1 and 5 is the scripture that's misconstrued, that people believe that a day starts in the evening, which is absolutely completely 100% wrong. When it says that in Genesis 1 and 5, he says the morning he called the light he called day, and the darkness he called night. Well, that's talking about 12 hours of dark, 12 hours of light, like Hamashiach says in John 11 and 9. Evening in the Strong's Concordance simply means sunset, which is immediately followed by 12 hours of darkness called night. So this is talking about, we just read that unleavened bread, the first day is the 15th. The 15th is the Sabbath, right? So he says, it is a night to be much observed unto Yahuwah for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of all of the children of Yahuwah to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generation, right? So I'm going to jump over to verse 51. It says, and it came to pass in the self same day that Yahuwah did bring the children out of the land of Egypt by their army. So again, it's talking about the self same day, meaning a specific day, right? So I'm going to drop down to Exodus chapter 13 and verse 3 and 4. It says, and Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which ye came out of the house of bondage, for by strength of the hand of Yahuwah brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. This day came you out in the month of Abib. So the self same day is talking about they brought them out a specific day in the month of Abib, right? So the precept for that is Numbers chapter 33. And we'll go over there and see exactly when they came out. Numbers 33 and verse 3. It says, and they departed Ramesses, or Egypt, in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, on the morrow after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with a high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. So when it says the first month, meaning the month of Abib, it says the 15th day, which the 15th day is the Feast of Unleavened Bread in this case. It says on the morrow, meaning the next day, after the Passover. And the scripture defines itself because we know that the Passover is the 14th day. So if it says the morrow after the Passover, the morrow after, which would be the 15th day. And like I said, all Sabbaths as well as the new moons are celebrated during the 12 hours of light called day. Just like Hamashiach said in John 11 and 9. So they're saying that they went out on the 15th day, under a full moon, right? So let me go over back to Enoch, and I want to make a point of that. Enoch 77, and make a point because it said they went out on the 15th day. So in reference to the full moon, Enoch 77 and verse 15 and 16, it says, it becomes precisely completed, or the fullness or the perfection of the moon in 15 days. It says it becomes precisely completed on the day that the sun descends into the west, while the moon ascends at night from the east. So what they're saying is that this is how you know, like, the moon is a sign. Like it said in Sirach 43 and verse 6, it's an announcement of times. Because on the actual 15th day of the month, the moon is going to do exactly what Enoch is saying here. Is that, like I said, I'm in Africa. So as the moon comes up this evening for me, which simply means sunset, when the moon is coming up here in Africa, the sun will be setting in the west for me, but it will be going into the east for those in the United States, because the sun and the moon both rise in the east and set in the west. So as the sun is setting in the west for me, what this is saying is that the sun and the moon are going to be on polar opposites. So this is what this is saying. It says it becomes precisely completed on the day that the sun descends or sets in the west, while the moon ascends, meaning while the moon rises at night in the east, rises in the east and sets in the west. Verse 16 says, the moon then shines all the night until the sun rises before it, when the moon disappears and turns before the sun. So when it says the moon then shines the whole night, that's telling you that there's no darkness that night, because before, it's like a scale. Before the sun sets in the west completely, the moon is going to be, before the sun sets completely in the west, this is a better way to do it. Before the sun sets in the west completely, and I'll do it this way. Before the sun sets, the moon is going to be coming up. So it's going to be like this type of thing, where there's no darkness, meaning that before the sun completely sets in the west, the moon is going to come up very slow and very low. And as she continues to go, the intensity of the moon is going to intensify. And so it's going to be no darkness. By the time the sun actually sets in the west, which will be in the east for America, the moon will be rising up. And that's what it means, there's no darkness that night. So when it says in Exodus 12, as far as our forefathers and foremothers going out of Egypt, when it says this night and this day should be remembered, and it's talking about how they went out in the sight of them, because they went out into the wilderness. So when they went out into the wilderness, they went out and there was no darkness, right? So this is what this is meaning. So my last scripture, because it said in Numbers 33 and 3, I'm going to read this from the beginning. Numbers 33 and verse 1, it says, "These are the journeys of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journeys by the commandment of Yahuwah. And these are their journeys according to the goings out." And again, verse 3 says, "And they departed Ramesses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, on the morrow after the Passover. The children of Israel went out with a high hand in the sight of the Egyptians." So again, when they left out of Egypt, they left out on the 15th, which is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, but they left out at sunset at evening, which simply means sunset, which is immediately followed by 12 hours of darkness called night. So this is why it says in Exodus 12, again, this is why it says, this is exactly why it says, to find my scripture, Exodus 12. This is exactly why verse 41 and 42 says this. Well, 42 to be specific. "It is a night to be much observed unto Yahuwah for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of Yahuwah to be observed by all the children of Israel in their generation." Because evening simply means sunset, which is immediately followed by 12 hours of darkness called night. And like I said, all Sabbaths and the new moon are celebrated during the 12 hours of light called day. So if this is not true, then when it says they took their journeys going out, then they would be breaking the Sabbath, because we're not supposed to go on a journey with that. So Jubilees chapter 50, and I encourage y'all to check out Jubilees chapter 50 before in its entirety, as far as things that can and can't be done on the Sabbath. But I just want to make the point to back up what Numbers 33 is saying. So it says right here, Jubilees chapter 50 verse 12, "And every man who doeth any work thereon," talking about the Sabbath, "and go upon a journey." So Numbers 33 said Moses wrote their journeys going out. So it says, "Any man that go upon a journey, or tilleth his farm, whether his house or another place, and whosoever lighteth a fire, because you shall kindle no fire throughout your habitation on the Sabbath." So it says, "Or rideth any beast, or travelleth by ship on the sea, and whosoever striketh or killeth anything, or slaughtereth a beast." So when we're instructed on the 14th, which is the Passover, to kill a lamb in that evening and to roast it by fire, this is why that's not a Sabbath, because even though that's the Passover is the 14th day, it's also the 6th day of that particular week, which is a prep day for the actual Sabbath, which is the 15th. So this is why it says you shall kill nothing or slaughter anything on the Sabbath. So if the evening constitutes the starting point of the day, then the Most High is telling us not to kindle a fire and don't kill anything, and then telling us to break his laws, and we know that that's not right. So it says, "Anybody who lighteth a fire, or rideth any beast, or travel by ship on the sea, whosoever striketh or killeth anything, or slaughtereth a beast or bird, or whosoever catcheth any animal or bird or fish, and whosoever fasteth or maketh war on the Sabbath, the man that do any of these things on the Sabbath shall die. So that the children of Israel shall observe the Sabbath according to the commandments regarding the Sabbaths of the land. And it was written on the tables, which was given into the hand, that I should write for thee the laws of the seasons, and the seasons according to the division of days." The division of days meaning the different feasts that take place. So I just wanted to do a quick Sabbath morning edification. Like I said, today is the 15th day of the 8th biblical month, which is the full moon. And again, Psalms 89 verse 37 says, "The moon is a faithful witness in the Shamaim, or in the heaven." So this evening, the moon is going to testify that this day, the 12 hours of light called day, that this is when the Sabbath is celebrated. This is when the temple gates is open, when you go into Ezekiel 46 verse 1 through 3. So I just want to do this quick edification. I pray that somebody gets edification. I pray that somebody gets the understanding and comes off of the Saturday Sabbath, because that has absolutely nothing to do with the Most High. So with that, I say Shabbat Shalom and Shalom.